Welcome back to Comic Cuts. This is the third time we've done this on video, and I hope you're enjoying it. I'm certainly enjoying the challenge of creating something that I have absolutely no talent for. So if it's a bit stumbly and not that good, I hope you'll forgive me. I'm going to give you a quick insight into my week. We had some shelves that needed moving from upstairs. We had two large shelves on the landing, and we've been asked by our landlady to move them and replace them with two half shelves. So this has been hanging around for rather too long, so we decided that this was the opportunity to actually do the moving. So we brought the shelves downstairs, and then we had the problem of trying to figure out where we ended up with a spare shelf, and trying to figure out where that could go. So that actually took us into a late Sunday, and I still hadn't figured it out. And it did, in fact, take me until Tuesday to come up with a solution that pleased both Mel and I, or at least one that was, acceptable to both Mel and I. So that was just one distraction that I've had this week. On Monday, I was going to start work on a new book, even though I've been tinkering with it for a couple of days before that. So Monday was going to be my first day working on the artwork, because it's a comic strip reprint. It's going to have to be in 2 volumes because there's a lot of pages. So that was going to be, Monday morning, I'll crack on. So instead, what I did was answer email and then go and make banana bread. The banana bread was delicious. It worked out very well, thank you very much. We've finished it today, and it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I managed to miss out a couple of ingredients, but it didn't seem to matter. It still tasted very nice. The recipe came from the BBC Foods website, so if you want to go and head over there, I can absolutely recommend the banana bread recipe. So that was Monday. I did a bit of work on Monday afternoon, and then Tuesday there was more distractions as we finally figured out what to do with these shelves. So if you've noticed, long-term viewers, this is our 3rd week after all, might have noticed that the shelf behind me, it's a different shelf. So I had to dismantle half the office to get the shelf and another half shelf in, and a small unit out. So that was somewhat chaotic, and it meant that there was very, very little work done that day. On Wednesday, rather than doing any work, I managed to spend most of the morning on Skype. It's the first time I've downloaded Skype and used it. I'm a fan already. It seems to, I certainly had an interesting conversation with the person I was talking to, and also immediately afterwards, I had a call from a relative. So, and I said, "Oh well, I'm busy on Skype," and he said, "Oh well, I'll call you back. I can do Skype. I've got it open now." So I'm not quite sure what to do with this newfound piece of technology, but I'm sure I'll incorporate it into a video somehow, somewhere, at some time, because I try not to let anything go to waste. Also on Wednesday, I did a Q&A. I asked last week whether anybody had any questions, and I've had I think 2 flooded in. So what I've done is I've taken some of the questions that I get normally during the week. I get a 4 or 5, occasionally interesting to me, occasionally requiring a bit of research. And one came in that I thought, oh, well, this could be quite interesting. So I did some research, and you'll hear the results. Again, I'm very stumbly, but hopefully you'll forgive me. So Thursday is when I'm recording this rather than working. However, I have managed to get 100 pages of the first pass over this artwork out of about 260 sorted out. The first pass, I did the scans for these many, many years ago before I developed a slightly better technique. So unfortunately, there's a yellow tinge on the scans which needs to be removed. And you have to do this carefully, otherwise you start losing line work as well as the tinge. And that's certainly the case with line and wash artwork, where you've got ink washes. So you have to be a little bit careful about removing the tinge. So I've done about 100 pages over the last few days, and I'm also cropping the artwork. So we've got a clean and crop pass. There'll be a second pass where I need to replace the mastheads on the opening page of each episode, and also the strip is going to require quite a lot of relettering, which is going to be the longest and most boring of the jobs that I need to do on this. Hopefully I can get this done in a reasonable time, and I should have some news in a couple of weeks about when it's likely to appear. I'll also let you all know what it is at some point. I'm keeping it close to my chest so that I don't blow all of my surprises in one video. Anyway, that's what I've been up to for the last couple of days. I hope you've all been keeping safe and socially distant. And I will now hand over to myself to answer a question. I said last week that if anybody had any questions, I'd have a bash at answering them. So we've had one or two about comics and one or two about illustrators. So what I'm going to do is I'll just pick one and try and answer that this week. And then maybe if I've got the time to do some research over the week, I'll try and answer a few more next week. The first one that I picked came from Julia Button, who says that her father was L.F. Lupton, a commercial artist, and worked for a company called Brett Callam. Now, I'd written about Ronald Brett in the past, and if you do a search for Ronald Brett and Bear Alley, you can soon pull up that entry. But Julia was interested in the company that he co-founded with A.E. Callam and asked if I had any more information. Well, I didn't. But I've been able to dig out a few bits. So, Albert Edward Callam, he was born on the 11th of August 1904, the son of Arthur William Callam, a straw hat stiffener, and Kate Callam, a straw hat machinist, married in 1892 at Christ Church in Luton. Now, it seems that Luton was the centre for straw hat production and straw hat plaiting, and had been a business since the 17th century, and by the mid 1800s it was employing thousands of people. So that was the big centre, and straw hat platters around the country flocked to Luton, it would appear. So I haven't done much research on that side of it. I do know that Albert had two older siblings, a Bernard and Lillian, and they too worked in the straw hat factory as a clerk and a machinist respectively. Albert went to Luton Grammar School, where he was awarded a fellowship to the Royal Society of Arts. He first studied drawing under his old schoolmaster, Mr. Frederick F. May. He then goes into agencies, I believe. In the early 30s, he was living in Luton still with his wife. He had married Gertrude Norwood in Luton in 1930. In 1933, he successfully passed the British Typographers Guild test in layout draftsmanship. This was a relatively new society, and he was one of the first members of the British Typographers Guild in company with Mr. Eric Gill, the sculptor, and Sir Francis Meynell, Master of the Faculty of the Royal Designers in Industry. The following appeared in a local newspaper around that time. It is a rule of the Guild that only those who can produce an attractive and technically correct layout from copy supplied to them can be admitted to the membership. Mr. Callam's layout was of exceptional merit. A certificate of proficiency is awarded to successful applicant. Mr. Callam is employed in London. Now I'm guessing, but we know that A.E. Callam was the director of Askew Young Studios. In late 1938, Callam teamed up with Ronald Brett to form Brett Callam Designers. What they seem to have done is taken over the studio at Baynard Press and continued to work in lithographic printing. Unfortunately, early in the war, the print industry was totally devastated, and after about 1940, it seems that Brett Callam may have folded. I know very little about Callam after that. What I can say is that he continued to work as a painter and had some contemporary exhibitions in the early 1950s. He travelled to New York and America in 1952, and that seems to have inspired at least one painting entitled Buildings in Washington, D.C., which was exhibited in 1954 and was hung at the 1954 Paris Salon. So clearly a good painting. The only other painting whose title I know is Keeper's Hut, Ashridge. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to track down any of these paintings online, so they seem to be quite scarce, and I'm not sure how prolific a painter he was. From 1950, he began publishing a number of books, beginning with Letters to Lisette by Rosemary Cobham in 1950. He then publishes poetry volumes by Elizabeth Leigh, K.M. Westaway, J.A.R. Stevenson, Florence Gubbins, and various others. A short novel of I say short, it was only around 75 pages, called Peace in Rapallo by Alexander Reisner. In the late 1950s, he continues to publish poems by Kathleen Perrotton, Robert E. Key, including collected poems of Robert E. Key and collected poems of Edgar Newgas. He also publishes a number of biblical tomes by Edgar Newgas in the early 1960s. He also then publishes 2 volumes of family history about the Norwood family, the Norwoods being related to his wife Gertrude. So he publishes an introduction to their history and a book of heraldry and brasses in 1962 and 1965 respectively. And then there was a 3rd volume published many, many years later under the title A Chronological History, published as a limited edition of 400 copies in 1997. Unfortunately, by then, Callam had died. He was living in Bexhill-on-Sea in East Sussex and died on the 9th of September 1980. His birth erroneously being given on the death record as the 11th of October 1906 rather than 1904. His wife outlived him by quite some years. She continued to live in Bexhill-on-Sea, where she died on the 13th of October 2003. And as far as I know, they had no children. And there was a small notice of the kind that you get in Air Hunters that appeared around the time of her death, looking for people who may be able to claim the estate. That, unfortunately, is all I know about Callam, but a good bit of luck struck, and I found a newspaper report as a PDF. Unfortunately, it's been taken from a microfilm, so the quality is not that good, but we do have a photo of A.E. Callam. So that's what I've been able to learn about him. And hopefully we now know a little bit more about him than what we did before. If I get time, I'll do another of these Q&As. If not, keep your questions coming in, and I'll try and do something for next week. Oh, well, I hope you enjoyed that. It was quite interesting to do the research on that one, and I'm rather pleased that I actually managed to find out something about A.E. Callam. Now, you can ask me any question you like. You can contact me through Bear Alley has got my email address, so you can contact me directly there. You can contact me on Facebook, or you can leave a comment underneath this video on YouTube. I'll only be able to pick 1 or 2 to answer because they can be quite time consuming to research and also to record, as I'm no expert at this at all. I think I spent 20 minutes recording the second video and then 4.5 hours trying to edit it down so that I didn't sound like too much of an idiot. But I do enjoy these. It's something different for me. And during this pandemic times, sort of like anything that is slightly different, that takes you out of yourself, I do hope that people will enjoy watching them as well. Well, I think I'm going to have to bring this to a close, otherwise I really won't get any work done. Somebody was asking after the keys. I mentioned the keys last week and where we were walking. If I've got any video, what I'll do is I'll either tack it on to the end of this, or what I might do is just sort of like piece some together and put it out separately so that you can actually see what I'm talking about and where we were walking. We were walking there this morning. The weather's been beautiful. I hope everybody stays safe. It's 6 weeks into this now, and I know everybody's probably chomping at the bit to get back to work or get stuff done, or they're getting bored. For safety's sake, you've got to keep your distance. You've got to stay safe. Just do what I'm doing, which is just trying something new. I'm no cook, but I'm trying cooking. I'm no video technician. I'm the least technical person you could meet. Yeah, I'm doing a video. Why not try it yourself? I'm doing it on a tablet. It's not even a smartphone. I don't own a smartphone. I'm that much of a Luddite. Anyway, enjoy yourselves. I'll talk to you again next week. Bye.